What up, what up? What's going on? Peace to the guys and earths. What's good? Yo, yo. This video is going to be about hip-hop. That's why I had to flip it on you, because hip-hop has its own slang, its own language, right? And it's its own movement with elements of MCing, DJing, breaking or dancing, graffiti, and even the clothes. So altogether, it's a culture and a living codex. When something is living, it holds active energy, not just static memory. It's alive. It reveals deeper meaning over time because it contains frequency codes, frequency coded intelligence that gets unpacked, and when you are in tune with it, it will reveal certain insights. When you are reciting hip-hop lyrics, it can transmit energy when it's spoken out loud. I used to spit. I come from that golden era of hip-hop where it was about ciphers. That's when we would get together in a group and we would all bring our pad and pen and we would write the coldest rhymes. Whatever was coming to mind, you would just write it down and showcase it. So we would play these tracks. It would just be the instrumentals and it would just be loops, samples on loops. And you would sit there and you would nod and you would get into it. You might, puff on a little, a little beat and write your rhymes. And then before you knew it, there was a whole masterpiece and we would spit it around each other. Let me spit this real quick. Yo, got flows, got looks, and my style's different than any of these broads that you've been hearing. So let me write for you to make you more appealing, cause when you try to flow, it sounds more like you spilling. Rhyme saccharine, the sweetest verbalist, never coexist on a track with the simplest. I'm a lyricist, so give props to mine. Sick flow, so critical, I gotta write on flat lines. Write my own rhymes, let me get that out the way. Never watered down, pure hip hop and concentrate. Verbally saturate, see the storm clouds forming. Every flow I got comes with a flood warning. Ooh, that's just a little taste. That's just a little, I gotta stop it right there. That's too sick for you. That was a flow written by my favorite MC, yours truly. But hip hop was all about getting into a rhythm that made everybody nod their heads. Hopefully you were at home nodding your head with me. It was about a trance state, and it was easy to get into that trance. You had the cannabis, you had the loop, the samples that were just repeating. Jay Dilla had the best loops to me. And then you would have even sayings that rhymed, and that, would definitely put you into a trance. Sometimes you would repeat the same thing, which is like a chant or an affirmation, right? So this is definitely a sacred transmission, which I call a living codex. And it's interesting because whether I'm actively emceeing and spitting verses, or if I'm doodling and creating what's more like street art, even though I never spray painted and doodled on a wall, and I use my tablet instead, these are still forms of expression that get you into a trance-like state in the process. And I'm going to break it down. I was in high school and college during the mid to late 90s, during that golden era of hip hop. And I used to call myself Legacy. So peace to everyone who remembers Legacy. I remember that as soon as the beat dropped, all the MCs would start nodding their head. And that's when you became a sacred vessel, because you were entrained by the beat, the loop. It would get you moving before you even realized that you were moving. And then when you started to rhyme or spit, as they called it, it was a sacred transmission. You were becoming a channel at that time. And those rhymes, they weren't coming from thought when you were freestyling. It was coming from source. And it was a whole art form to stay in rhythm to the beat, have your cadence and your breath. You can't get winded. You have to stay in syncopation. And in doing that, that is where that trance-like state could be created, not just in you, but in the listener as well, because it would open up these theta and alpha waves, which are the same frequencies that you reach when meditating or drifting off to sleep or in deep spiritual practice. And the trance state is like an access point, from like a doorway between the visible and the invisible. And so now you start having a state of consciousness that bypasses the ego. So no longer are you going to care about judgments or guilt or shame. You're going to get into transmission mode, and it's like a signal zone where source can reach you, divine intelligence, and your spirit team will be in charge of helping you do so. And you'll also be downloading those ancestral memories and having access to a lot more than you can if you're just, regular in your regular state of mind. And in this state of consciousness, it's like time stands still. You're going to be in a zone, and time flies when you're having fun. And it's just going to seem like everything else vanishes around you, and who you think you are is what also vanishes. So you go beyond ego, beyond your current identity, and you're able to receive rather than create. And you'll know when it's working, when it takes no effort at all, or it happens really quickly. That means that you're in tune. So it's not about effort, it's about attunement. It doesn't matter if I'm in a cipher or if I'm doodling, I get to that state of consciousness where I lose track of time and where I get lost in the activity. And before I know it, effortlessly something has been created, and I look back at it like, wow, did I really just make this? And I just know that something else has taken over or been transmitted through me. Like, I'm the vessel, I'm the channel, and this is a divine message. It's encoded with frequency coded intelligence. And I talked about in a previous video about these black mirror technologies, right? Our phones and tablets. And I use my iPad, and it really is a technology that I can connect with my spirit team through, and the Nomo builder races. And so it really is a magic tool, a spiritual tool that I use each and every day, even right now as I speak. What makes this all so very spiritual or magical, if you will, is when you think about how the primordial forces were working with this same trance-like state to create from a sacred blueprint and not just from personal will. It's the same way of organizing chaos and creating beauty that MCs and artists use when we're tapping into that builder frequency. And when you're channeling harmony and energy and divine intelligence, it's like you're being a conductor, not a constructor, so to speak. And so what can we do with this ability if you are like me and you get into a trance whenever you're creating music or art? Just honor it. Just know that it's a sacred temple. It's like you can get into that sacred space anytime that you want. So you can intentionally sit down, and if you give yourself about an hour and a half, you're gonna definitely reach that goal of that trance-like state. And you want to keep doing it. Keep drawing, keep flowing, and don't judge what comes out. It's not so much about the content that you create, it's more about the channeling that you're doing. And it's going to sharpen, and it's going to get better and better with time and practice. Pay attention to any themes that start repeating. For instance, when I rhyme, I boast a lot. I'm a boast MC. There's nothing wrong with boasting, because for me, it helps build my confidence and my self-esteem, to speak highly about myself and call myself the coldest or the best, right? To hold myself in that regard. And then it gives others tools to be able to get into that same state of mind as well, because anyone who memorizes my verse is going to be spitting the same things, and maybe they feel that way about themselves too. And so don't worry if some people say, oh, you're conceited for that, or you're full of yourself. I don't care. I have a whole song like, tired of my boast flow, well, that's all you get, ho. And if you're raw with it, with your expression, I mean, that's what hip-hop is for. Hip-hop was created to help our generation get that steam off, and art has movements like that. I studied Dada, and that was a movement born out of World War I and all that chaos that was going on, and people needed a way to do something with that aggression in the way that they were feeling. And when I was healing from trauma and generational curse breaking, my tablet became a healing tool, because all I would do is just doodle, and whatever came to mind, I never judged it. I would just let it out, and then next thing I know, there were whole scrolls there. And to me, my scrolls match a hip-hop soundtrack. They really look like street art, if you will. And at some point, I'm gonna definitely get more into presenting those scrolls and breaking them down and sharing them. All right, so stay tuned for more videos on that. And that is just something that I wanted to share today. And so if you resonate with this video and you like it, please give me a thumbs up, and a comment would be nice. What did you think of my verse, or how has hip-hop impacted you? Or do you get into trances when creating your art? And I would love to hear any comments that you have about this video. And please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. All right, thank you so much. Until next time, peace. Love you guys.